Mr. Dave.
Can you find me? What is it? Check. Can you call for me? No. Oh, finish it. You want it?
I want to tweet it as well. So I have 2 million followers on Sowore. Still going live.
Now you're from Southwest Political Headquarters to Nigeria's political headquarters. Welcome to radio station Feb 5.9. This great, wonderful morning. It's all about politics, and we'll continue intermittently the state of the race. Next week, like I did mention, we'll be reviewing the Guba pool of the People's Democratic Party and the Alliance for Democracy. As we wrap up this morning, the Gladiators, as far as ADC is concerned, the last word. His name, Dr. Nurain Adeniran.
Yeah, Dr. Nurain Adeniran, you remember he hails from the Southwest Local Government of our state. He was one-time councillor in that local government. He was one-time chairman of the local government, and thereafter he became a lawyer and an academic. He lectured in UI, and is one of the leading Guba aspirants in ADC today. And of course, by business too, is also the publicity secretary of that party as they go into their work congress this morning. The man, Nurain Adeniran, is imbued with a number of talents. He's a cerebral guy, and he's also one of the not too young to rule class of members of the public or politicians aspiring to be leaders of this great country come 2019. Be that as it may, looking out for them, and we hope that the best emerges at the end of the day. Thank you.
Back to the basic, back to Sowore for the next 15 minutes. Let me say this with every sense of responsibility. A friend, the friend of the station, Omoyari Sowore. You know, you joke about something, and your voice, your statement, laden, very strong. And the young ones, I must tell you, I usually fired up by what you utter. But I want to say this to you on behalf of Dr. Yinka Ayefele, the CEO of this great station. That's the statement you earlier mentioned. Maybe the reason why I was trying to restrain one of your Guba aspirants in the state is because we are afraid whether somebody is going to pull this building down. One, listen, that ain't going to happen. Two, nothing, I repeat, nothing, according to Dr. Yinka Ayefele, will change what this station stands for, no matter what it takes. This is People's Radio. This is People's Station. It is instructive that NBC, the regulator in charge of monitoring what we do, I can tell you boldly, in the last 3 years, this station has never been found wanting. For once. For once. So it means we are there strictly to the tenets of our profession. We aren't worried. We are not scared. On Sunday, when this building went down, part of this building went down, Dr. Yinka Ayefele said, Mayor Isaac Brown, I want to hear your voice. We had crossfire here last Sunday, even though we were worried about whether some blocks are going to fall off. And Dr. Yinka Ayefele sat inside the studio that same Sunday and had this program. So the issue of whether, to all our guests listening to me, to whoever want to come to this station, it is your voice, it is your station. Nobody's gagging us. Our job, we've been told, we must continually do what is expected of us as a radio station. Adhere strictly to the tenets of our profession, which lead me to my next question. Sowore. People say you've been fundraising all over the world. We see you, take it back, Kaduna, take it back, Bayelsa, take it back. And cynics out there are like, oh, he's getting campaign donations. People are dropping money into this trip. And when the chiefs are done, finally, a few days, few weeks, few months to the election, oh, you're going to hear Sowore say, oh, that system is rigged. I'm not going to put my head into it. What do you have for those cynics as regard the struggle that you have found yourself?
It is very important that people who are cynical are given their own right to also express their cynicism about anyone. But I have a duty to clarify and to remind people of my history and pedigree that I've never backed down before. Of all the battles I have found myself since I was, I'll say, 18 years old at the University of Lagos, when I stepped there as a freshman in 1989. This is probably the easiest fight I've ever fought, and I never backed down. I never backed down when we were fighting the military and I was expelled from the university twice, until Nigeria experienced democracy in 1999. I never backed down when at the university I was confronted as a student union leader with very deadly cult gangs who beat me up, stripped me naked, stabbed me and injected me with unknown chemical substances. I went back to school and graduated from the University of Lagos against the wish of my detractors, foes. I never backed down when I started Sahara Reporters and I was sued several times in the US. I went through 4 lawsuits in the US. I won all of them. I didn't back down. On one occasion, one of them said, if only I could apologize, he would withdraw his case. I opted to go to the end of that case and won the case. I never backed down, even when Saraki seized all the money that Sahara Reporters invested in our new office in Ikeja last year, 2007. He got a fraudulent judgment from one Jankara judge. I'm not afraid to say it in a lorry, one of those judges that they put in office. They seized from us over $200,000 for money that was given to us by a foundation to set up Sahara Reporters in Nigeria as a media lab. I never backed down. Till today, we're paying the wages of our staff members. We've employed almost 30 people. Right? I never backed down. And I've never had to back down before, and this will not happen. And just to address people who are talking about fundraiser, the fundraising we are doing, or that I have done, is open and available for you to track. On GoFundMe, I think we're about $65,000. When we started, they wrote to GoFundMe to shut down the account that it was a fraud. I wrote to GoFundMe and said, this is my pedigree, this is my history, and this is my integrity. They reopened it immediately. That's how GoFundMe started. On Zenith Bank, I have only one Zenith Bank account that I opened for the presidential campaign. Every month, I screenshot what is inside it, and I put it on Facebook. You can find it, so that nobody is in doubt as to how much we're making. But I'm making personal investments of my own money to do this because I'm convinced that if I could do it by myself, I wouldn't have asked anybody for it. But it's not new, it's not a novel idea. Obama raised money. I contributed to Obama's election in the US. I contributed $250 when I wasn't sure he would win. And if there were no limitation, I could have even paid more. So everywhere in the world, when people don't have resources to run for, they say, go to the public. It's called crowdfunding. I'm crowdfunding, and I will explain everything and how we spend
every kobo.
Every kobo, you know. But what we should know is that, imagine within 6 months with $65,000 and maybe another 5 million naira, we have been able to reach 29 states as of last week in Nigeria, traveling by road, by air, and even sometimes going by boat or Okada. We've reached everywhere. We have openly, everywhere we went, we live stream wherever we can find network, what we are doing. You see all these young people surging towards us. The advantage we have if we had to play politics the way they play politics, $60,000 is not enough to hold one rally. Because you have to buy food for people, clothes and kara, you know, buy them water, and then bribe the various leaders who bring in people to you. We are not doing that. In some cases, we have to maybe pay for transportation because people are so poor they can't get to and from some of the centers. But with nobody, when we went to Benue, nobody asked us for water. When we came to Ibadan, we had more people outside waiting to get into the hall at the University of Ibadan than were inside the hall. This is public knowledge.
When you went to Oyo?
When we went to Oyo, you were the MC in Oyo, and the hall was jam-packed, including on top. In fact, they were complaining that, you know, more people wanted to ask questions that we had time to answer. So we've been to 29, and we've done events outside of the country. A lot of funding is also coming from Nigerians who are living abroad, who want this country to be a nation that they can be proud of. So, but it's natural. Very soon, you will find yourself in that position to where they'll say that the GoFundMe you are doing is to, in fact, somebody's going to accuse you that you are arranging the demolition of your station so that you can raise money. It's how cynical people are in Nigeria. You can't help people who think that way. We are 198 million people, and every Nigerian has an opinion, yes, about everything. And I love that. It's the dynamism of being a Nigerian.
The last two from me, before the best in the business as far as print journalism is concerned, before they step in, also very critical. You just chastise and criticize former president of this country,
yes.
OBG.
Yes.
And something that I found quite instructive. You said, this is the same man that has over and over again been advising Nigeria on the right choice of
Leaders.
who the next leader should be. And eventually, those leaders Nigerians will embrace, and they end up disappointing Nigeria. People have also said, Sowore, Sahara reporter, you played crucial role towards the sacking of PDP and towards the emergence of APC. Will you not say you yourself have some blame to take? Because you 24/7, you were on the neck of PDP, and APC took advantage, and they're in power. Will you apologize to Nigerians?
No,
if you feel they have failed.
There's nothing to apologize.
What do you mean? You will encourage Nigerians?
No, wait. You know, you have to understand the context between my own intervention in Nigerian politics and Obasanjo's intervention. Obasanjo will come and present a candidate to you and say, if you vote for this candidate, he's going to take us to Eldorado. He will hold his hand. And even when one was sick, he made a phone call at the rally and said, "Are you dead, Umaru?" That one says, "No, I'm not dead. I'm on my way back." And he knew that Umaru was dying. So in my own case, my intervention has history. My intervention is for this country to experience democracy. And I will give you very quickly 3 areas, or even more areas, where my intervention has helped and is non-partisan. And first was when I was in the university. I intervened alongside the likes of Ghani and others to bring democracy to this country. I fought Babangida, Abacha, Abdul Salami. The history is there. I stood behind Abiola in 1993. I was 21 years old. I was not a member of the SDP. Or at that point, all the members of the SDP had abandoned Abiola to the wolves. We stood behind him. After that, I left this country and set up Sahara Reporters. Our biggest problem after Sahara Reporters started was Obasanjo wanted to continue for 3rd term. I fought against him. I was not a member of the PDP or the Senate at that time. After that, there was another problem. But the man Obasanjo brought, Umaru, was dying. And the Nigerian judiciary, the Nigerian legislative arms, both upper and lower arms, refused to allow Dr. Jonathan Goodluck to ascend to power by declaring Yar'Adua incapacitated. Sahara Reporters almost single-handedly on a daily basis fought for Jonathan, who was a member of the PDP. Would you also ask me to apologize for that? And Jonathan became the president of Nigeria for the first time through our efforts and efforts of other good-natured Nigerian people of good conscience. We were able to install in power, help to bring about a process that allowed a minority to become the president of Nigeria. And that helped to boost the democratic spirits among Nigerians. They now feel that they are included within the democratic system, that it doesn't matter whether you are minority or majority, you can become president. Jonathan went from there to become the president of Nigeria. When he got there, he set up his own cabal, and they started stealing and robbing and looting this country. We now have the evidence. In the army, in the navy, in the air force, they were keeping money inside cooking pots, you know, inside the GP tanks, in the closets, everywhere. My duty, and as a conscientious objector, who, by the way, is closer to Jonathan than anybody, because we come from the same area in Ondo State. We are both water people. So, I mean, he's from Bayelsa, I'm from Ondo State. I fought against his abuse of power, the corruption that his government was perpetrating. And in the course of that, another political party emerged that used materials that we produce on Sahara Reporters conscientiously to attack Jonathan. You cannot find anywhere in Nigeria where I even wrote a tweet in support of Buhari's candidacy, because that was not my job. I was a neutral arbiter within the political system who wanted the political system to succeed. What was my biggest intervention in 2015? We announced the results of the election, 10 states, before they could rig it. If we hadn't announced the result as they were coming out, they would have rigged the election. That was why Rubebe went and sat on the floor and lost his mind. But I'm saying, how I'm different from Obasanjo is Obasanjo will hold the hand of somebody and say, this is your best candidate. He did it with Yaya Adua, he did it with Jonathan, he has done it with every time. And all these guys have failed us. We cannot continue to follow an elder statesman, as he called himself, whose job is to fail generations and unborn generations of Nigerians. And you want me to be praising him? No, I cannot do that. So what I did, in a nutshell, in explaining to you, is that I've helped to bring about democracy in my own little way. I've helped to deepen democracy by defeating the Mugabe. I've helped to ensure that democracy worked and was respected and inclusive by helping to install a minority man in Nigeria. And I've helped a party-to-party transition of power in this country. The next one I'm about to do is a generational transition of power from an old generation to a new generation.
When we come back, that they can be Dimola Babala takes over.
Like never before. The views and opinions expressed by guests and analysts on this program are those of the discussants and do not in any way represent the views, opinions, or endorsements of Fresh 105.9 FM and its management. You are listening to the Radio Political Khalifa, your irresistible male, Isaac Brown.
What a political breath of fresh air. Exclusive. 105.9.
Welcome back to Nigeria's political headquarters for radio stations, Fresh FM 105.9. That really can be Nigerian Tribune.
Thank you very much, Mayor. To our guest, I must say I'm inspired by your spirit, to get things right in Nigeria. I'm one of those following you on Instagram. And I know that you have done a lot, crisscrossing the entire world, to let them know that Nigerians can do things differently. But some Nigerians listening to you would like to see you demonstrate how much of the workings of this largely dysfunctional system that we have in the country, you have got. You are aspiring to lead the most powerful black nation on earth. And they will say experience, just like the minister said the last time, experience is very important. So how much of the workings of this system do you have?
I have enough to do better than the system is today. I have seen, followed, investigated, written, fought within the Nigerian system for 29 years, non-stop. I have seen who were president when they were younger than me, came back, because one of the excuses that they used when they were re-electing Obasanjo was that or when Obasanjo was to be elected democratically. They claimed that he had had experience as a former president and that he has had life experiences having gone to jail. All of those experiences were packaged and sold to us, and most people fell for it. What was the outcome? The outcome is Nigeria that's outside there, broken and broke. Then you brought Buhari back, experienced. He was former head of state. He's a herdsman, farmer, elder statesman, MON, GCFR. Integrity. What is the outcome 3 years later? Another broken Nigeria, divided, very divisive figure. People are getting killed. The life of a Nigerian is worth less than the life of a cow in this country managed by Buhari today. Unemployment has skyrocketed. Our roads are in bad shape. The economy is in tatters. The man couldn't appoint his ministers after 6 months. He has spent more time outside of the country treating himself than he spent in the country. And somebody is telling you that's not the kind of experience we need. What we need is experience that is motivated by service and sacrifice. And I have better experience than any one of them. There's no one of them that you see out there that I can tell you that they've done better than I've done. Because, as I mentioned one of them here, and we're getting calls, when I was a student union leader in 1992 fighting against the military, he was in a bank stealing money. And you reward him with the senator, by the Senate presidency of the country. So what I wanted to say is that I don't have experience in stealing. I don't have that experience. I don't even have a home that has a fence. I have only one house in this country because my entire life I've made sacrifices that are necessary. And it's not as if we should be praising ourselves, but I'm presenting to you my CV. As a young Nigerian, fresh with ideas, and I have exposure, I have been an entrepreneur, I have fought where it's necessary. Where they fought against us, I have fought for you. All the time.
In terms of solving the problems in the key sectors like agricultural sector, the education sector, the economy, which is very, very important. Nigerians would like to know how do you think these problems can be solved?
That's the conversation we should be having. And the conversation is already something I've discussed fundamentally and extensively in town hall meetings across the country. I've done more than 60 events. And not only am I doing these events, I'm facing people to say, come and ask me questions, and ask me questions and answer the questions. I've also met with journalists and discussed them, and nobody has been able to fault, for example, the 10 areas where we think we need immediate intervention in Nigeria, which security is number one, power is number two, infrastructure, fighting corruption the real way, an economy that is all inclusive, because we need completely a new political economy in Nigeria. We have to change the mindset that our economy should be based on the size of our foreign reserve. It has to be based on the size of the bowls of food that is on the table of our people, not the size of the foreign reserve managed by some London bank that doesn't get to you. We have discussed restructuring, and I've said that I'm committed to restructuring, but I'm not committed to a restructuring conversation that does not include young people. I don't want people who we have been mentioning so far to restructure Nigeria for me when they're already in the departure lounge of life. I am 47 years old, an 80-year-old man wants to restructure Nigeria for me. That's not going to work. So I said, the solution for restructuring is for a young person to be elected into office. He will gather other young people and will restructure Nigeria in ways that are consistent with the rest of the world. I made a joke the other day in Makoti that if we really believe in young, old people experience, why didn't we send Odegbami to go to the World Cup? He's probably the most experienced soccer player in Nigeria of his own, of all era. But other countries are sending their young people with will, determination, stamina to the World Cup. In fact, the countries that won the last World Cup, since we love football, were countries that had young leaders. A very young president in France was there, hailing his team to victory. That lady, I don't remember her name, from Croatia, an underdog, hailing. So that tells you something, that the world is changing while we are stagnant in this country. And the reason we are stagnant is because we keep dwelling on experience that have no bearing on our own futuristic plans to progress. You want people who were in power in 1960 And they were there in 1970. In 1980, when I was in primary class 1, I read about Buhari, right? I read about Audu Ogbe in 1979. Some of these guys were in social studies. They taught us. They are still your leader. And you expect the country to progress. You are wasting your time.
Yeah. Yeah. For you to get power, there are those who believe that you still need this old guard, their support, because they control the system.
We don't. That's the problem. It's the internalization of our laziness. I'm sorry to say that we need, what you need in election is numbers. Conscious people who are consciously willing to free themselves. We have the numbers on our side. We don't have the consciousness on our side. And that's what we are trying to get. How many are the old men? Some of them cannot even walk to the polling booth on election day. They're too old, right? Some of them cannot stand to even get a PVC today because it takes a long time to get a PVC. They don't have the time. You'll be surprised that most of these people don't even have PVC. Buhari's wife said that most of the people who are in his cabal don't even vote. That's the truth. But you have 70% of our young people, they are languishing in unemployment. They can't go to school. They have reached the age of puberty. They have reached the voting age. Some of them are actually dying because the way the Nigerian life expectancy is set up is that if you were born in 1960, you would have died by now because you are supposed to be 54 years old and die. But look at where Nigeria is. The people who are governing Nigeria are all actually older than Nigeria. That's the cost.
Nigerians would like to know those who are...
We don't need them. We need ourselves.
Those who are in your party, AAC, maybe there are money bags there, or people who are not breaking away from the past. You still have them in that party.
We don't have money bags, no. We don't. This party is barely 2 weeks old. The movement is very transparently public, including where we go. When you see parties that have money bags, you will see the money bags and their impact and effect. You see in the car that the candidates are driving. You see the number of policemen that are following them. We don't have police. Even when we apply, they don't grant us application because we don't have money to give to the police for me. You cannot, for example, get police support in this town without fueling their car. You know what that means. It's an aphorism for packaging for the commissioner. So we don't have the money to give them. So we go around protected by our conscience, and all these young people who are very, very interested in seeing that we become the dominant political force in Nigeria so that they can see the Nigeria of their dream in their lifetime. We are going to be robbed of a lifetime of 4 years if we make another mistake in 2019. And this is why I say it. It's very simple. 4 years is so important in the life of a young person. It takes 4 years to obtain a degree. If you give it away in 2019, you have wiped out everybody that could get a degree in 4 years under this rigged system.
Lastly from me,
yes.
Some politicians and parties have expressed concern about the neutrality of INEC for 2019 election. As a party, AAC, how confident are you that the election will be credible, free and fair?
We will be monitoring things, but this is what I'll say to you. Don't waste your time. It's INEC's job to work for the ruling party. We've already made it difficult by allowing the president to choose INEC's chairman. So anybody that's chosen by the president must have been known by the president or have some level of loyalty. These are some of the things we should address. There must be a neutral body that appoints INEC chairman, commissioners. But we are monitoring. The reason why we are confident is that we have social and technological tools to checkmate this kind of shenanigans. I've covered a lot of elections with terrible INEC chairmen. People like...
They listen to me. You don't mention it. But you also have to realize and admit that, look, under a very time, during a time of highs, we saw Jega appointed by a president who was, people believe, also did a good job. Let me flip to Demola Babalola, these days newspapers.
Oh, thank you very much once again. Sowore, you are welcome back to the studio.
Yes.
I must say that I'm proud of you, your pedigree and your intelligence and what you are bringing to the table. It's fantastic. You are all over the place and you're doing wonderfully well. At least for some of us, you are giving us a ray of hope that after all, there is still future for this great country. Yeah. Having said that, you recall and you must have read a number of books about our past leaders, a number of them who meant well for this great nation, the like of Nnamdi Azikiwe, the great Awolowo, and the rest of them. Awolowo has been described by various Nigerian leaders as perhaps, arguably, the best president that this nation never had. Ditto, Fawembi, the Ghanaian SAN, was all over the place fighting for the commoners, for the masses of this country. Yet, at a point in time, he was flying the flag of a political party to become the president of this nation. The masses let him down. They did not vote for him. How confident are you in this struggle to upstage the likes of Muhammadu Buhari come 2019?
Thank you very much. I will say this very clearly. We must start by admitting that, just as you asked the question we should ask is, was the election that had Gani Fawembi with 50,000 voters credible? That's the question that we must ask ourselves first and foremost. It wasn't. It was one of the elections that was rigged in favor of the ruling party at that time, clearly. The other thing that is philosophical that we need to say is that so many of these guys also came before their time. For example, if Gani Fawembi was around during Twitter and Facebook, these results could have been different. Or if we, in the pro-democracy movement, took the right decision in 1999 to contest the elections, to participate in the transition program, Gani would definitely have defeated Obasanjo in 1999. Falana would have defeated Ifayose in 1999. But it took time before we realized we needed to go into the transition program and partake in the electoral process. By that time, the thieves had consolidated their hold on power, and there was no way you could penetrate their midst. They had, they were vulnerable in 1999, but they weren't vulnerable in 2003. And regardless of the disagreements you see them having even now, when the time comes, if what is at stake, which is the national cake, is threatened, they will come together. So the same thing with Chief Obafemi Awolowo. His projects and the programs and ideas couldn't be amplified as far and as fast as it needed to be, because his style was also a little different. He's consolidated his hold on his area where he started from where he had power and strength. And that made the rest of the country see him somehow as an ethnic warlord who wanted the Yoruba race to be superior to others. And that was misinterpreted or actually misapplied by his opponents. So there are a lot of things that happened during that period or during their own times that are working for us now. And the most important thing that I should say last is that it is from those mistakes that our generation must choose our own solutions. If we are saying that Obasanjo and Awolowo could have been our best president, why can't we now rectify it? If we find another promising young person on the horizon who is giving you hope, like you said, who is making you proud, get out of your house, stop wringing your hands, walk out of the space, talk to your colleagues and say, look, here we go. We have a chance and we can take a stab at this system. And I would say this, in the history of the political era, this is the most vulnerable time for the political operators at this time. They have stabbed themselves in the back, shot themselves in the foot by their own designs, and a lot of internal contradictions within the political elite has opened the door for us, including a clamor by our own generation to take power and use it in the interest of, because we cannot continue like this. If we continue like this, I tell people something got to give, and it might be beyond the way we are doing politics now. We've seen it before, but this is the best time to take advantage of how much damage these guys have done to themselves and they have done to us, and we chart a new course. And you can hear me, and you can see me on Twitter. If you are ridiculing this process, you are not ridiculing me, you are ridiculing a future that you could be guaranteed that could make you be proud of it. If you are being cynical, you are not being cynical, you are killing yourself internally. If you are being, if you're insulting, you are not insulting me, you are insulting our collective resolve to break free. And that is what we need to tell our people. The message needs to be loud and clear, and we are glad that we can reach so many people through several channels these days.
I have two more, but
Yes.
the first one has to do with the fact that no man is an island.
Yes.
We'd like to hear from you. Who are your think tanks? Who are the people? Are you the leader, the chairman of the party, the candidates, all this? We'd like to know how much of support do you get from the cerebral minds, especially from the ivory towers in the land. And finally, for me, I regard you as a presidential aspirant without Godfather. Having said that, how has it been? Crisscrossing here and there, talking to people, holding town hall meetings. It takes a lot of energy and determination to wanting to be in this kind of race, presidential race for that.
matter.
How has it been so far?
Let me add to that.
And finally, sir, sorry. They say charity begins at home.
Yes.
We thank God that Fresh FM is offering you another platform today, barely 2 months after you were here. How much of support are you getting from the media, especially the Lagos axis, the northern people across the land? Thank you very much.
Yes.
To add to that, you have gone through 29 states to speak to the common people.
Yes.
What is the feeling like? Because there are those who feel that there's no opposition to President Buhari in 2019.
Well, let me start from there. These feelings are amplified in the mainstream. It is the feeling of falsehood, that there's no alternative to Buhari. The places that we went to that we were most shocked in terms of reception that we got was places like Bini Kevi, places like Sokoto. We also went to Zamfara, and we were shocked at the reception. These things are available publicly. How all
These are northwest states.
They are they are northwestern states. We also went to Jalingo in Taraba. We went to Yola. All these young people came out en masse. We went to refugee camps. People who are hurting and want to go back to their homes. These are internally displaced people, as we call them, but I call them refugees because so many of them are getting direct assistance from the United Nations the same way they are getting assistance in Syria, in Nigeria. So people are not looking forward to a continuation of a Buhari presidency. The Buhari regime had continued, just like those before him, to use the northern part of Nigeria as a social experiment for poverty. And in impoverishing a place, you add ignorance to it and every other factor, you have a dynamite in front of you. But what I saw in the northern part of the country are people who are desirous to climb out of poverty. And they are looking for hope. And they are looking for hope beyond, because all the people around them have disappointed them. In fact, they used to think that Buhari would do it for them. Buhari for them was the last hope. They call him as Gaskia in the north. But what they are all broken and sad that their condition did not improve and has not in any way and doesn't look like it will improve. That was why they embraced us. As I told you, I was warned severally not to go near the north, that they will eat me raw. But I braved it. I said, if I cannot, without police, go to any part of Nigeria and espouse my ideas and tell them that there's a possibility for a better Nigeria, then I'm not what I have told people I am. And that is what took me to remote places, and like Kano, Taraba, we've been to Adamawa, and when we go to those places, we go to the poorest, people who live on dirt. That's the way to describe it, and I'm not denigrating them. It's a reality. Look, Southwest people, we are poor, but you haven't seen poverty until you get to northern part of Nigeria. So sometimes when people look at us and say, oh, the northerners are enjoying, they are in control, they are in power, you know, just say, Father, forgive you, because you don't know what you're saying. These guys, they have lost control, they're not in power, they've even lost dignity of a human person, you know, and they use them as, like I said, pillars of social experimentation in poverty. And the reason they do that is exactly the question you're asking today, is that they want to scare every other person from going there to go and discuss how they.
So you were well received, right?
I was well received.
Will you, let me just add this. People have always said Sowore is nothing but an online tiger.
Yeah. Nobody's saying that anymore.
Hold on.
I think that was
Now,
what
hold on.
that minister here.
The inconsequential.
That was inconsequential.
No.
It doesn't feel that way.
No, excuse me. For the young people,
Yeah.
24/7, they're on social media.
Yes.
You know, tweeting. They're on Facebook. How important is it for them to translate these activities of theirs online into reality, especially when it comes to the need for them to get their BBC?
That's what I said earlier, that you see there is population on our side, but there's no consciousness on our side, and we are working on consciousness.
It's even said that some of these young people, on the day of the election, they'll be busy in their room.
Yeah,
still
some of them will
tweeting,
be tweeting, you know,
because tweeting instead of coming out to vote.
Social media gives people sometimes a false sense of importance or relevance that is dangerous. And sometimes social media, I was the one who almost single-handedly got Sahara Reporters organically to 2 million followers on social. Some of the, you know, highest number of followers in Nigeria have it. And I understand that social media can be very, very deceptive. And it can, because there's a way it also ties people down. They put them in a lockdown. It's like a jail. It's like a jailhouse too, where you feel so important, you can't even get out of the bubble. It creates a bubble around you. You're in your house, nobody cares about you, but you think that the whole world cares about you because you have followers on Twitter, people are retweeting you. And you don't understand that until you put your feet on the ground, you step out of, until you close your computer, switch it off, or you switch off your phone. In most cases, you can never get the freedom that you're advocating for on social media. So until you get your PVC, there's no, like somebody used to joke that INEC doesn't count how many likes you have on social media, whether it's Facebook, but it has its own value. It has its own, you know, it's part of the charter for us to have conversations that otherwise we'd never have. You see, the NBC cannot control social media, you know, and it's important that those channels are open for the kind of conversations that cannot be accommodated by the mainstream or the terrestrial platforms where conversations are, you know, are interrupted, you know, or there's some kind of self censorship. For example, even Twitter censors, Facebook censors, but there's a bigger billboard known as WhatsApp. Nobody ever asks you what to post on WhatsApp. You know, there's Telegram. So all these channels are opening up conversations. They are deepening and expanding the space for democratic participation in ways that we don't have before. And that's why I said this era is different for us. But it's also very important, like someone said, that this also becomes a tool for consciousness. If we don't get to that consciousness very fast, we will all regret that we have social media and we haven't been able to get social promotion and upliftment.
Nigeria's political headquarters now says Sowore. Fresh FM 105.9. What a great, massive conversation we've been having this morning. And of course, the best political team in the land, live in the house, Demola Babalola, and of course, Dari Adekombi. Let me, wrap up our conversation with this. There are those who have claimed the so-called not too young to run bill is more of a fallacy. Even if you ask that a 15-year-old can aspire, the system that we run is so heavily monetized, because before a Sowore can emerge as the presidential candidate of your party, there must be a process. People talk about direct primary. People talk about indirect primary. It's been said that most politicians with money, that is where the deed usually is done, because at the end of the day, you have one of my analysts mentioning a particular name as having the final say on who gets which ticket. So Nigerians eventually are always left with choices already made by this politician, because the political process, if you talk of delegates, if you talk about either direct or indirect, an average delegate will only vote for the man who gives them the biggest in terms of cash, highest bidder. So eventually, now you will see on the final day, a candidate from this side who has rigged his system because he paid everybody in the party. The best of brains, the best of mind in that party probably don't even have the financial muscle to pay the delegates, direct or indirect. So that is why a lot of people concluded that, look, the political process itself rigged from the primary. The eventual candidate you see are not always the best in terms of brain or plans, but usually those that are able to get enough money to buy off the process. And that is the problem. So, for not too young to run bills, fine. You can't contest as whether you are 20 or you are 30. But the truth is, if you don't have the financial muscle, you cannot even emerge from the so-called major political party. I want you to help us make sense out of this quagmire.
One thing we were discussing before was consciousness. And I see more consciousness happen. And I want to use your station where we're speaking from today.
That gave
as
you
an example,
the Fresh FM,
yes,
that gave your
campaign,
the boost.
Yes, as an example of the consciousness we're talking about. The people who were here on Sunday last week, when this place was partially demolished, they were not paid to come and protest to protect you. It is consciousness, a place of consciousness. And the reason why they trust you is because you let people like us come speak. Typically, you will probably not let people who cannot afford to give you big money to talk. The moment you start to expand that and people see you as fair and just and balanced, you will get that support when you find yourself in situations in which you find it. This thing that happened to you last week was to test the waters. If there had not been resistance, this place would have been leveled by now. I can tell you that for free. It doesn't matter what eventually happened. What eventually happened was as a result of the social forces that rose up on Sunday and said no to this shenanigan. That's one thing to know. Secondly, talk about the not too young to run. We have to give it to any group of activists that try their hands on changing the system. We have always been clamoring for people who are young to come out, and the laws were, or the odds were stacked against them. So they fought. Whichever way they did it, we have to give it to them. I wasn't the direct beneficiary of it because at 47,
you're not too young to run.
I'm already even going in the old to run area. But here is what we have to say. I think the people who we need to kick out are the people we should focus on, and not the young ones. The only flaw I found about the not too young to run group is that the moment the bill was signed, they should have rallied, they should have started another campaign immediately to sensitize the public not to vote for the old people who signed the bill. But here they were, President Buhari was telling them that, oh, you have to give us 4 years. And I tell them, those of you who went to sign the bill, in 4 years' time, you'll be as old as Buhari. No, and I mean it. It's not that your age will reach, but by the time Buhari is finished with us in another 4 years, some people will age so fast.
No, that's the truth.
That's the truth.
So not too young.
They should have rallied behind candidates.
Is that what you're asking for now?
Aspirants.
Is that what you're asking for? As
we're surprised that after they signed it, they went back to their NGO business. It's not saving this country is not an NGO thing. It has to be a conscientious, firm decision to wrestle power from these people. We should have all gathered together after they signed the bill and say, thank you, Mr. President, we are kicking you out. We go back to battlefield. But we can't find them. We can't find the not too young to run advocates. You know, we can't. They are not supporting anybody. We are not seeing them supporting, because that would it will eventually defeat the bill when we, in 4 years' time or in 2019, have the same old people return to the political post where we left them.
I must really thank you, the presidential aspirant, Sowore of Sowore Reporter. He has officially nicknamed us, and we'll take it off from here. We're now Nigeria's political headquarters when it comes to radio station. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm also humbled that you did acknowledge that your first experience with Fresh FM triggered national and international consciousness about the seriousness of your ambition to succeed President Buhari come 2019. On behalf of my chairman, I want to say this station remains open to every voice. We are for everybody. We belong to nobody.
Are you still repeating this mantra?
We are for everybody. We belong to nobody.
You have to belong to everybody.
Let me finally wrap it up by once again thanking the federal government, President Buhari, the National Broadcasting Commission, for all efforts that have been put in place as regards the circumstance and situation we found ourselves. Let me again reiterate our appreciation to His Excellency, the Executive Governor of the state. The promise he has made, the world is waiting to see it come to pass. I must also thank all the royal fathers, led by Ikuba Bayeyi Alaafin. And finally, so much thanks from us to APC, Guba aspirant, Joseph Olasukan Tegbe. You are a peacemaker, and history will remember you. I remember your street, the Mayor Isaac Brand saying, thanks for listening. IB tomorrow is Crossfire, 4 p.m. You don't want to miss it, because this is Nigeria's political headquarters. I'm out of here.
Mayor of politics.
Let's take pictures.
Thank you. The last time we had to do this, the pictures weren't easy to take.
Ibadan, give me so. Fresh FM.
Which one is it?
Mr. Brown, I know they
Come on. He went to the federal channel. They've been savaging him since.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Please come to me. Okay. Respect the manager.
Thank you so much.
Sorry for
Sowore. Omoyele.
I know Omoyele.
Sowore.
A lot of people have been having difficulty, especially when you give it to new stars.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that somebody wrote my name as Sowore.
That might be deliberate.
Oh, it was.
That's what
it took 75. I'm in your politics. Isaac Brown.